Hello, and welcome back to Nighttime Science, where the wonders of our world unfold slowly, like pages turning in a book you never want to end. Tonight we're descending into a realm so removed from our everyday experience that it might as well exist on another planet. A place where sunlight has never reached, where the pressure could crush a submarine like paper, where the cold is absolute and the darkness complete. We're traveling to the deepest parts of the ocean where creatures drift through the void and form so strange, so perfectly adapted to their impossible world, that most of them have never been seen alive by human eyes. Before we begin this quiet journey into the abyss, I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Perhaps you're somewhere warm and safe, wrapped in blankets as the world outside grows dark. Or maybe you're drifting towards sleep already, letting these words carry you down, down, down into rest. Wherever you are, imagine for just a moment what it would be like to float suspended in water so deep that the surface is nothing but a distant memory. Where every direction looks the same, where the only light comes from the creatures themselves, glowing softly in the endless night. If this kind of exploration brings you peace, if learning about the strangest corners of our world helps quiet your mind, perhaps consider giving this video a like or subscribing to this channel. Your support helps us continue creating these gentle explorations through science and wonder. But there's no pressure, no urgency. We're here for as long as you need us to be. Now settle in. Let your breathing slow, and follow me down through the water column, through layers of blue that fade to black, to a place where mystery still reigns supreme. Because in the deepest trenches of our ocean, there are creatures that have existed for millions of years. Creatures whose bodies defy everything we thought we knew about life, and most remarkably, creatures that we have never observed alive in their natural world. Until very, very recently. The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet's surface. It holds 99% of Earth's habitable space by volume, and yet we have explored less than 5% of it. The deep sea specifically remains one of the last true frontiers, more mysterious in many ways than the surface of Mars. When we talk about creatures humans have never seen alive, we're not speaking of animals that went extinct thousands of years ago. We're talking about species that exist right now, this very moment, swimming or drifting through the dark waters far below where any light can penetrate. They're out there. They've always been out there. But the conditions of their world make witnessing their lives nearly impossible. The deep ocean presents challenges that would destroy most life we're familiar with. The pressure increases by roughly 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters of depth. At 2,000 meters down, the pressure is 200 times what we experience at sea level. At 6,000 meters, it's 600 times greater. This crushing force would collapse human lungs instantly, would implode submarines not specifically designed to withstand it. Any creature living at these depths must be built differently, structured in ways that seem alien to us. And when we bring these creatures to the surface, even gently, the rapid change in pressure destroys them. Their bodies expand, their tissues rupture, their delicate organs fail. The very act of observing them kills them. Which is why, for so long, the only specimens we had were corpses. Beautiful, strange, haunting corpses that told us shapes and structures but never behaviors, never movements, never life. The darkness is equally absolute. Sunlight penetrates ocean water to varying degrees depending on clarity, but even in the clearest tropical waters, virtually no light reaches below 1,000 meters. This is called the aphotic zone, the sunless zone. and it extends all the way to the ocean floor, thousands of meters deeper in many places. Without light, there can be no photosynthesis, no plants, no primary producers as we understand them. The entire ecosystem runs on marine snow, the constant gentle drift of organic particles falling from the sunlit world above. Dead plankton, fecal matter, fragments of larger animals, all of it sinking slowly through the water column, feeding the creatures of the deep. And in this darkness, in this food scarcity, life has become patient, efficient, and strange beyond imagining. The cold is the third challenge. Deep ocean water hovers just above freezing, usually between 0 and 4 degrees Celsius. Cold water holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water, which is fortunate for the creatures there, but the cold also slows metabolisms, extends lifespans, and changes the very chemistry of life. Some deep-sea creatures grow enormous over centuries. Others reproduce so slowly that a single female might carry her young for years. Everything moves in slow motion compared to the frenetic energy of the surface world. And so, given these conditions, you can begin to understand why seeing these animals alive has been such an extraordinary challenge. For centuries, we knew them only from the occasional specimen that washed ashore, already dead, already decaying, already transformed by pressure change and time. Fishermen would haul up strange bodies in their nets. Whales would beach themselves with unknown creatures in their stomachs. And scientists would examine these remains, sketch them, preserve them in jars, and wonder what they looked like when they were alive, what they sounded like if they made sounds, how they moved through the water, what their eyes saw in the darkness. It wasn't until the late 20th century that technology began to catch up with curiosity. Remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, equipped with lights and cameras, could descend to depths no human could survive. Submersibles with reinforced hulls could carry researchers into the abyss. High-definition cameras could capture movement in near-total darkness. And suddenly, slowly, we began to see not just bodies, but lives, not just forms, but behaviors. And what we discovered was more extraordinary than anyone had imagined. Let's begin with perhaps the most famous deep-sea creature that humans had never truly seen alive until just recently. A creature so massive, so powerful, so perfectly adapted to the crushing depths around Antarctica that it holds the title of the heaviest invertebrate on Earth. Let's talk about the colossal squid. The colossal squid, known scientifically as Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, lives in the Southern Ocean in waters surrounding Antarctica. It was first scientifically described in 1925 after a sperm whale washed up in the Falkland Islands with 2 colossal squid tentacles in its stomach. For an entire century after that discovery, we knew this animal only through fragments. Tentacles. Beaks. Occasionally, fishing vessels would accidentally catch one in their nets, hauling it up from depths approaching 5,000 feet. And each time, what surfaced was already dying or dead. These specimens revealed an anatomy both beautiful and terrifying. An adult colossal squid can grow up to 7 meters in length and weigh as much as 500 kilograms. That's about as long as a city bus and heavier than a grand piano. Its eyes are the largest in the animal kingdom, measuring up to 27 centimeters across. That's wider than a soccer ball, wider than a dinner plate. These enormous eyes are adaptations for seeing in near darkness, capable of detecting the faintest bioluminescent glow or the subtle shadow of a predator passing overhead. The squid's body plan is distinct from its cousin, the giant squid. While the giant squid is longer overall, with incredibly long feeding tentacles that can extend for meters, the colossal squid is shorter but far more robust, far heavier. Its 8 arms and 2 longer tentacles are equipped not just with suckers but with hooks. Sharp, rotating hooks that can swivel 360 degrees, designed to grip and hold struggling prey in the darkness. When you imagine this creature, imagine something built not for speed, but for ambush. Something that hangs suspended in the water column, barely moving, conserving every calorie of energy, waiting for a Patagonian toothfish to swim close enough. And then, with explosive speed, those tentacles shoot forward, those hooks dig in, and the prey is drawn toward a beak powerful enough to slice through flesh and bone. But for all we knew about the colossal squid's anatomy, we had never seen one alive in its environment. Every specimen we examined was already dead, already changed by the journey to the surface. The soft tissues had expanded, the eyes had clouded, the colors had faded. We could measure the hooks, count the arms, dissect the beak. But we couldn't see it move. We couldn't watch it hunt. We couldn't observe its behavior in the crushing cold darkness where it actually lived. Until March of 2025. 100 years after the species was first described, a team of researchers aboard the Schmidt Ocean Institute's vessel Falkor captured the first confirmed footage of a colossal squid alive in its natural habitat. They were exploring waters near the South Sandwich Islands in the South Atlantic Ocean using a remotely operated vehicle called Sebastian. At a depth of 600 meters, nearly 2,000 feet below the surface, the ROV's cameras caught movement. And there it was. A juvenile colossal squid about 30 centimeters long, swimming gracefully through the water. It was translucent, delicate, its body catching the ROV's lights and glowing softly. The researchers could see its eyes, no longer stalked out to the side as they are in newly hatched young, but integrated into the head, proportional, alert. This was a teenager, if you will, no longer a baby, not yet fully grown. Still with years of growing ahead of it, years of descending deeper, years of adding mass and size until it would become one of those half-ton giants that haunted the depths. The footage was brief but extraordinary. You could see the squid's arms moving with precision, steering it through the water. You could see its body pulsing gently as it jetted water for propulsion. It was alive. It was real. And after 100 years of wondering, after examining only corpses and fragments, humanity finally got to witness this magnificent animal as it actually existed. What the footage revealed was not a monster, despite the squid's size and weaponry. It revealed an animal of grace, of beauty, of perfect adaptation. The researchers described it as delicate, as elegant. Dr. Kat Bolstad, a biologist who helped confirm the squid's identity, said the find highlighted the magnificence of deep-sea creatures without the monster hype that often surrounds them. This was not a beast from nightmares. This was a living being shaped by millions of years of evolution to thrive in one of Earth's most extreme environments. We still know very little about how colossal squid live. We don't know their full lifespan, though estimates suggest they might live for several years. We don't know exactly how they reproduce, though we assume females release eggs and males transfer sperm packets in the darkness. We don't know how deep they descend as they age, how far they range, what threats they face beyond sperm whales which hunt them in the deep. But now, finally, we have seen one alive. And that single piece of footage, that brief glimpse of movement and life, is worth more than 1,000 preserved specimens. Because it showed us truth instead of interpretation. It showed us reality instead of imagination. the colossal squid is not alone in its elusiveness. Its cousin, the giant squid, suffered a similar fate for even longer. The giant squid, Architeuthis dux, has haunted human imagination for thousands of years. Ancient sailors told stories of kraken, massive tentacled beasts that could drag entire ships beneath the waves. Scandinavian legends spoke of sea monsters the size of islands, and for most of human history, these stories were dismissed as fantasy, as exaggeration born from fear and misunderstanding. But the giant squid is real, very real, and it grows to tremendous size. The longest confirmed specimen measured about 13 meters from the tip of its mantle to the end of its feeding tentacles, though some unverified claims suggest individuals reaching 18 meters or more. Most of this length is in the tentacles, long whip-like appendages that the squid keeps concealed until the moment it strikes. The body itself, the mantle, is usually around 2 meters long. But even at these sizes, the giant squid is lighter than the colossal squid, more slender, built differently. Giant squid live at depths between 300 and 1,000 meters, in cold, deep waters across the world's oceans, from the Atlantic to the Pacific to the Indian Ocean. Unlike the colossal squid, which lives only around Antarctica, giant squid are found globally, though they avoid tropical and polar extremes. And for centuries, despite their wide distribution, despite the fact that close to 700 specimens had been documented by the early 2000s, not a single living giant squid had been photographed in its natural environment. Dead giant squid would occasionally wash ashore, their enormous bodies drawing crowds. Fishermen would find them tangled in nets or floating at the surface, dying or already gone. Museums collected specimens, preserving them in massive tanks of formaldehyde. The Smithsonian Institution has one of the most famous, a female caught off the coast of Spain in 2005, measuring 7.6 meters long even after shrinking considerably in preservation. When it was alive, it was likely 11 meters long, an animal of staggering size. But despite all these bodies, all this evidence of the giant squid's existence, no one had seen one alive and active in the deep ocean. No one had watched it hunt, watched it move, watched it exist in the world it was built for. Until 2004. A team of Japanese researchers, after years of planning and searching, managed to photograph a live giant squid in the wild. They suspended baited lines at depths of several hundred meters near the Ogasawara Islands south of Japan and attached cameras to the lines. When a giant squid approached and attacked the bait, the cameras captured hundreds of photographs. The images showed the squid's enormous tentacles wrapping around the bait, the suckers gripping, the body just visible in the darkness beyond. It was the first confirmed photographic evidence of a living giant squid in its natural habitat. 2 years later, in 2006, the same team managed to capture video footage. They brought a squid to the surface alive, an extraordinary achievement, and filmed it before it died. The creature was immense, powerful, its arms moving with muscular precision. But this wasn't quite the same as seeing it in the deep, in its element, behaving naturally. Finally, in 2012, nearly 200 years after the giant squid was first scientifically described, a team including scientists from Japan's National Science Museum, the Japanese broadcaster NHK, and the Discovery Channel succeeded in filming a giant squid swimming freely at depth. They used submersibles and special camera equipment, descending into the darkness near Japan's coast. And there, at about 600 meters down, they found one. The footage was extraordinary. You could see the squid's movements, fluid and strange. Its tentacles rippled through the water like ribbons. Its body pulsed as it jetted along, and most remarkably, you could see its eye. That enormous eye, the size of a dinner plate, black and reflective, staring into the camera. For millions of years, that eye had evolved to detect the faintest light, the smallest movement in the near-total darkness of the deep ocean. And now it was looking at lights it had never evolved to see, at a machine it could never have predicted, carrying cameras that would show its image to millions of humans living in a world it could never visit. What the footage revealed, like the colossal squid footage decades later, was not a monster but an animal. The giant squid moved with purpose, with grace. It was clearly intelligent, clearly aware. When it approached the submersible, it did so cautiously, investigating. It was curious. And when it decided the submersible wasn't food, wasn't a threat, it simply left, disappearing back into the darkness as though it had never been there. Since that first footage, a few more sightings have occurred. A juvenile giant squid swam into a harbor in Japan in 2015, allowing divers to film it up close before guiding it back to deeper water. But these sightings remain extraordinarily rare. In the thousands of ROV dives conducted around the world each year, in the countless hours of deep-sea footage captured, giant squid appear perhaps once in a great while. They are out there, certainly. Sperm whales hunt them regularly, and we find the squid's indigestible beaks in the whales' stomachs. But seeing them alive, observing them as living creatures rather than legends or corpses, that remains one of oceanography's rarest privileges. What both the colossal and giant squid teach us is that size alone doesn't make an animal easy to find. These are enormous creatures, among the largest invertebrates on Earth, and yet they've remained hidden from us for so long. The ocean is vast, the depths are dark, and these animals are perfectly exquisitely adapted to remain unseen. But not all deep-sea creatures that eluded observation are giants. Some are quite small, some are delicate, some look so strange that when we first encountered them, we couldn't believe they were real. Let's talk about a fish that became internet famous for all the wrong reasons. A fish that most people know only as a blob of pink sadness, but which in its natural environment is perfectly adapted, perfectly proportioned, and alive in ways we only recently understood. Let's talk about the blobfish. The blobfish, scientifically known as Cycrolutes marcatus, lives off the coasts of Australia, Tasmania, and New Zealand, at depths between 600 and 1,200 meters. At these depths, the pressure is 60 to 120 times greater than at sea level. It's crushing, absolute, and it shapes every aspect of how life can exist there. The blobfish has no swim bladder, that gas-filled organ most fish use to control their buoyancy. At the depths where blobfish live, a swim bladder would be impossible. The pressure would compress any gas to nothing, or the bladder would implode. Instead, the blobfish's entire body is composed of a gelatinous, jelly-like flesh, with a density just slightly less than water. This allows it to float just above the seafloor without expending any energy on swimming. It simply drifts, hovering in place, mouth open, waiting for food to drift close enough to consume. This body structure, this gelatinous mass, is held together by the immense pressure of the deep ocean. The pressure acts like a skeleton, giving the fish its shape, its structure. And as long as the blobfish remains at depth, it looks like a fish. Not a beautiful fish, perhaps, but a functional one. It has a bulbous head, large eyes, a drooping mouth, and feathery pectoral fins. It's pinkish gray in color, mostly because its skin lacks scales and is very thin. Its bones are minimal and soft. Its muscles are nearly non-existent because it doesn't need them. It doesn't chase prey. It simply waits and eats whatever drifts into its mouth. Small crustaceans, sea pens, mollusks, anything slow or drifting. But here's the problem. When blobfish are accidentally caught in deep sea trawling nets, they're dragged rapidly to the surface. The pressure drops catastrophically, and their gelatinous bodies, which were held in shape by 600 to 1,200 meters of water pressure, suddenly have no support. Their flesh expands, their tissues sag. Their face, which was once just a normal fish face, droops into an expression of profound, almost human sadness. And this is the blobfish that the world knows. The blob. The sagging, melting, miserable-looking pink blob that was voted the world's ugliest animal in 2013. But that image, that famous photograph of Mr. Blobby, the preserved specimen at the Australian Museum, is not what a living blobfish looks like. It's what a dead, decompressed, pressure-damaged blobfish looks like. It would be like judging how humans look by photographing us in the vacuum of space. Of course, we'd look terrible. Our bodies aren't designed for vacuum, and the blobfish's body isn't designed for surface pressure. We've rarely seen blobfish alive in their natural habitat because reaching those depths is difficult, and the fish are not particularly common. They're not rare exactly, but they're not abundant either, and when submersibles or ROVs do encounter them at depth, the blobfish looks, well, normal. A bit odd, certainly, with that large head and those small fins, but it looks like a fish. A deep sea fish doing exactly what it evolved to do, which is hover motionlessly in the crushing dark and eat whatever comes close. There's only been a handful of footage showing blobfish in their actual environment, and each time scientists note the same thing. They look fine. They look alive. Their bodies are held together properly by the pressure. They're not melting or sagging. They're just fish, living their slow, patient lives in a place humans can barely imagine. But bring them to the surface, and they die. The pressure change is fatal. Their bodies can't adapt fast enough. And what washes up on a beach or gets pulled up in a net is a corpse, already transformed by physics into something almost unrecognizable. The blobfish became a symbol, an accidental mascot for the strangeness of the deep ocean. But it also became a symbol of how little we understand these environments and how much damage we do simply by trying to observe them. Every blobfish we've examined scientifically was one that died in the process of being studied. We've learned about their anatomy, their distribution, their diet from corpses. We still don't know how long they live. We don't know how they reproduce in detail, though we suspect they lay eggs that females tend carefully. We don't know how many of them exist, whether their populations are stable or declining, because studying them is so destructive and because their habitat is so difficult to access. But what we do know now, thanks to those rare glimpses from ROVs and submersibles, is that the blobfish is not ugly. It's adapted. Perfectly, exquisitely adapted to an environment that would destroy us in seconds. And when we judge it by standards of surface life, by the way it looks out of its element, we're doing the same thing we did for centuries with deep-sea creatures. We're misunderstanding them because we're seeing them in death instead of life. Another creature that eluded living observation for an extraordinarily long time is a fish that looks like it swam directly from the age of dinosaurs. A fish so ancient, so unchanged over millions of years that scientists call it a living fossil. Though that term, as we'll explore, is both accurate and misleading. Let's talk about the frilled shark. The frilled shark, Chlamydocelicus anguineus, is a deep-sea species that looks more like an eel or a sea serpent than any modern shark. It has a long, slender body that can reach 2 meters in length, dark brown or gray in color with a single dorsal fin positioned far back near the tail. But what makes this shark truly distinctive is its head. It has 6 pairs of gill slits, which is one more than most sharks possess. And the first pair of these gill slits extends under the throat, meeting in the middle, creating a ruffled, frilled appearance that gives the shark its name. Then there's the mouth. The frilled shark's mouth is enormous relative to its body, and it's filled with approximately 300 trident-shaped teeth arranged in rows. Each tooth has 3 sharp points, perfect for gripping slippery prey like squid and smaller fish. When the shark opens its mouth, it can extend its jaws much wider than most sharks, allowing it to swallow prey whole. And the way it hunts is thought to be snake-like, lunging forward in a strike, though no one has actually witnessed this behavior in the wild. The frilled shark belongs to one of the most ancient lineages of sharks still living. Fossil evidence shows that frilled sharks, or their very close ancestors, have existed for at least 80 million years, dating back to the late Cretaceous period. This was the time of Tyrannosaurus rex, the time of the great marine reptiles, the mosasaurs and plesiosaurs. And in the deep ocean, in the cold, dark places those marine reptiles couldn't easily reach, the frilled shark was already there, already hunting, already adapted to its extreme environment. What makes the frilled shark a living fossil is not that individual sharks live for millions of years, which is a common misunderstanding. It's that the species has changed very little over that immense span of time. The fossilized teeth of frilled sharks from 80 million years ago look nearly identical to the teeth of modern frilled sharks. Their body shape, their hunting strategy, their habitat, all appear to have remained relatively constant. This suggests that they found an evolutionary niche, a way of living, that worked so well that natural selection had little reason to change them. But while we've known about frilled sharks since the late 1800s, when German ichthyologist Ludwig Doederlein first collected specimens in Japan, we didn't see one alive until 2004. Before that, everything we knew came from dead sharks, usually ones that had been caught accidentally in deep-sea fishing nets or ones that washed ashore already dying or dead. These corpses revealed an anatomy perfectly suited to the deep. The frilled shark's eyes are relatively large for a deep-sea predator, but they're not as developed as those of many other sharks. This makes sense given the near-total darkness of their habitat. Instead of relying primarily on vision, frilled sharks likely hunt using their other senses. They have electroreceptors called ampullae of Lorenzini, which can detect the faint electrical fields generated by muscle contractions in other animals. They have lateral lines running down their bodies that sense vibrations and movements in the water. And they have that enormous mouth and those gripping teeth designed to seize anything that gets close enough. But it wasn't until remotely operated vehicles began regularly exploring the deep ocean that we finally saw frilled sharks in their natural environment. The footage showed sharks moving with an eel-like undulation, their long bodies rippling through the water with a sinuous grace. They weren't fast swimmers, but they didn't need to be. In the deep ocean, where food is scarce and most animals move slowly to conserve energy, the frilled shark's patient hunting strategy works perfectly. What we've also learned from the few living observations is that frilled sharks may have one of the longest gestation periods of any vertebrate. While the exact duration is still debated and difficult to confirm, some estimates suggest that female frilled sharks may carry their young for up to 3.5 years, possibly even 42 months. That's longer than an elephant's pregnancy, The females give birth to live young, usually between 2 and 15 pups, each about half a meter long and already fully formed, already equipped with teeth and hunting instincts. This extraordinarily long pregnancy makes sense when you consider the frilled shark's environment and metabolism. Everything in the deep ocean happens slowly. Food is scarce. Energy must be conserved. Growing embryos inside the safety of the mother's body for years allows them to develop fully before facing the harsh realities of deep sea life. But it also means that frilled shark populations are vulnerable. If too many adults are killed through bycatch and fishing nets or habitat disruption, the population can't recover quickly. It takes years for a new generation to be born, years more for them to mature. Frilled sharks live at depths between 500 and 1,500 meters, though they've occasionally been found in shallower water, especially near Japan, where the first specimens were documented. They prefer continental slopes and submarine canyons where the seafloor drops steeply and where deep ocean currents carry nutrients and prey. And they remain extraordinarily rare to observe. Even with modern submersibles and ROVs exploring the deep ocean regularly, frilled shark sightings are few and far between. What makes their rarity even more striking is that frilled sharks aren't particularly small or hiding. They're 2-meter-long predators. They should be relatively easy to spot. But the ocean is vast, and they're adapted to be as inconspicuous as possible in a world where being seen might mean being eaten. Their dark coloration helps them blend into the darkness. Their slow movements mean they don't create vibrations that might alert prey or predators. And they live in a part of the ocean that humans have only begun to explore in the last few decades. The frilled shark reminds us that living fossil doesn't mean unchanged in every detail. Evolution never stops. These sharks have undoubtedly accumulated genetic changes over millions of years. But their basic body plan, their way of life, their ecological niche, all of these have proven so successful that dramatic change wasn't necessary. They found a way to survive in one of Earth's most stable environments, the deep ocean, and they've been doing it successfully for longer than most modern animal groups have existed. Now let's turn to a creature so bizarre, so seemingly impossible, that when scientists first described it in the 1930s, the scientific illustrations were incorrect because no one could believe what the specimens actually looked like. Let's talk about the barrel-eye fish, a creature with a transparent head that allows you to see its brain and eyes as it swims through the darkness. The barrel-eye fish, scientifically known as Macropinna microstoma, was first described in 1939 by marine biologist W.M. Chapman. He collected specimens from deep waters in the Pacific Ocean, and when he examined them, he found something extraordinary. The fish had large, tubular eyes pointing straight upward, capped with bright green lenses. These eyes were unlike anything he'd seen before, designed clearly for detecting the faintest light from above. But what Chapman didn't realize, what no one realized until decades later, was that these eyes were encased in a transparent, fluid-filled dome that covered the entire top of the fish's head. Why didn't anyone realize this? Because the dome is incredibly fragile. When the fish were brought to the surface, either in nets or in early deep-sea sampling equipment, the rapid pressure change destroyed the transparent shield. It collapsed, it tore, it disappeared. And so the early scientific illustrations of Macropinna microstoma showed the tubular eyes exposed, sticking up from the fish's head without any protective covering. It wasn't until 2004 that researchers at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute managed to observe and film a living barrel-eye in its natural habitat using remotely operated vehicles. and what they saw was astonishing. The fish's head was a clear dome, like a glass cockpit on a submarine. And inside this dome, you could see the fish's eyes, its brain, its nerve endings, all the internal structures of its head. The eyes themselves were the two green cylinders pointing straight up, while two dark spots on the front of the fish that had been mistaken for eyes were actually its olfactory organs, its nostrils. This discovery immediately solved a puzzle that had bothered scientists for decades. If the barrelie's eyes pointed only upward, how did it see its prey when feeding? How did it maneuver? The answer was that the eyes weren't fixed at all. Inside that transparent dome, the eyes could rotate. They could point straight up when the fish was scanning for prey overhead, and then rotate forward when the fish was actively feeding, allowing it to see where it was going and what it was eating. The barrelie is a small fish, only about 15 centimeters long when fully grown, barely 6 inches. It lives at depths between 600 and 800 meters in the mesopelagic zone, the twilight zone, where some sunlight still penetrates but only barely. This faint downwelling light is critical to the barrelie's hunting strategy. The fish hovers motionless in the water, using its large, flat pectoral fins for stability. It points its eyes upward, scanning the dim light from above, and it waits for a silhouette to pass overhead. The green pigment in its eyes is thought to filter out the blue-green light coming directly from the surface, allowing the fish to better detect bioluminescence, the light produced by other deep-sea creatures. Many animals at these depths produce their own light, using it to attract prey, to communicate, or to confuse predators. And the barrelie can see this bioluminescence clearly against the faint backdrop of sunlight. But what is the barrelie hunting? Researchers believe it feeds primarily on small, drifting animals, particularly the prey caught in the tentacles of siphonophores. Siphonophores are colonial organisms related to jellyfish, and some species grow to enormous lengths, over 10 meters long, trailing thousands of stinging tentacles through the water like living drift nets. These tentacles capture copepods, tiny crustaceans, and other zooplankton. And the barrelie, with its transparent head shielding its delicate eyes from the siphonophore's stinging cells, carefully maneuvers through the tentacles, plucking off the captured prey with its small, precise mouth. This feeding strategy requires incredible precision and patience. The barrelie must position itself perfectly, must avoid the stinging tentacles while harvesting the food they've caught. And all of this happens in near darkness, with only the faintest light to guide it. The transparent dome, the rotating eyes, the ability to hover motionless, all of these adaptations work together to make this improbable hunting method possible. For over 60 years after the barrelie was first described, we knew it only from damaged specimens. We had no idea about the transparent head. We didn't understand how it fed, how it moved, how it saw its world. And then, in a handful of ROV dives, in a few precious hours of footage from the deep ocean off California, everything changed. We finally saw what a living barrelie looked like, and it was even stranger, even more beautiful than anyone had imagined. The Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute researchers estimate they've encountered barrelie fish only 9 times in over 5,600 deep sea dives. 9 times. That's how rare these animals are to observe, despite living in relatively accessible depths compared to the true abyss. They're not endangered as far as we know, but they're elusive, solitary, and perfectly camouflaged against the darkness. Seeing one is a privilege, a reminder of how much we still don't know about even the upper reaches of the deep ocean. While the barreli, the frilled shark, the blobfish, and the giant squids represent some of the most famous creatures we've struggled to observe alive, they're far from alone. The deep ocean is full of species that have never been filmed in their natural habitat. Species known only from preserved specimens, species that might be entirely unknown to science. Recent expeditions have revealed just how much mystery still remains. In March of 2024, researchers exploring the Salas y Gomez and Nazca ridges, an underwater mountain system stretching over 3,000 kilometers across the southeastern Pacific, discovered what may be over 100 new species. These ridges, which run between Chile and Peru, create unique habitats where cold water from the south meets warm water from the north, producing areas of extraordinary biodiversity. The expedition used remotely operated vehicles to explore seamounts, underwater mountains that rise from the ocean floor, and what they found astonished them. Among the discoveries were potentially 30 new species of sea sponges alone, including some with remarkably vibrant colors not typically seen in deep-sea organisms. They found squat lobsters with spiky shells and large eyes, ancient corals that may be thousands of years old, translucent glass squids drifting through the water, and numerous species of sea stars and crustaceans unlike anything in current scientific records. Each seamount appeared to host its own distinct community of life, species that had evolved in isolation on these underwater islands, separated from each other by deep trenches and vast distances. The expedition's lead scientist described it as almost baffling to discover so many new creatures, finding species they'd never encountered before every few meters. And this was in an area that's relatively accessible compared to the true Hadal Zone, the deepest trenches of the ocean. What this tells us is that we're still in the very early stages of cataloging deep sea life. The ocean holds perhaps 2 million species, according to some estimates, and we've formally identified fewer than 250,000 marine species total. Similar discoveries have been made in the Southern Ocean around Antarctica. In 2025, expeditions to the South Sandwich Islands and the Bellingshausen Sea discovered 30 new species, including a carnivorous sponge researchers nicknamed the death ball sponge, various iridescent scale worms, rare gastropods, and bivalves that evolved to live in volcanic and hydrothermal vent habitats, and the first confirmed footage of a juvenile colossal squid, which we discussed earlier. These expeditions also filmed species of glass squids that had never been observed alive before, adding to our slowly growing library of deep-sea footage. What makes these discoveries particularly significant is that many of these creatures had been brought up dead in nets before, had been preserved in museums, had been given scientific names based on their anatomy. But no one had ever seen them alive, had never watched them move, had never observed their behavior. Dead specimens can tell us about structure, about what an animal was built to do, but they can't tell us how it actually did those things. They can't show us hunting strategies, mating rituals, social behaviors, if any exist, or how these creatures interact with their environment. One of the most striking patterns in deep-sea life is gigantism, the tendency for species to grow much larger than their shallow water relatives. We see this in the colossal and giant squids, which dwarf most other squid species. We see it in giant isopods, crustaceans related to pill bugs that can grow over 30 centimeters long, 25 times larger than the pill bugs in your garden. We see it in Japanese spider crabs with leg spans over 3 meters, and giant sea spiders and enormous tube worms that can live for hundreds of years. This phenomenon, called deep-sea gigantism or abyssal gigantism, is thought to result from several factors. First, the cold temperatures of the deep ocean slow metabolisms, allowing organisms to live much longer than their warm water relatives. With more time to grow, they can reach larger sizes. Second, the scarcity of food means that larger body size and the ability to store energy reserves becomes a significant advantage. A larger animal can survive longer between meals. Third, the reduced predation pressure in the deep ocean means that growing large doesn't necessarily make an animal more vulnerable. There are fewer predators overall, and many of them are also large. Fourth, and perhaps most interestingly, there's the oxygen factor. Cold water holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water. Larger organisms need more oxygen to support their metabolism, and in the deep ocean that oxygen is available. However, accessing it requires adaptations. Some giant deep-sea creatures have enormous gills or very efficient oxygen transport systems in their blood. The giant squid and colossal squid, for instance, have blood that uses hemocyanin instead of hemoglobin to carry oxygen, which is more efficient in cold, high-pressure conditions. But gigantism isn't universal in the deep sea. Many deep-sea animals are quite small, some microscopic. The pattern depends on the specific ecological niche, the food sources available, the energy costs of survival. What's universal is adaptation, the ways that life finds to persist in conditions that seem impossible. Bioluminescence, the production of light by living organisms, is perhaps the most common adaptation in the deep ocean. More than 90% of animals in the mesopelagic zone between 200 and 1,000 meters can produce light. They use it in countless ways. Some have light-producing organs on their undersides that match the faint downwelling light from above, effectively erasing their shadows and making them invisible to predators looking up from below. Some use bioluminescent lures, like the famous anglerfish with its glowing fishing rod to attract prey close enough to strike. Some use flashes of light to startle predators or to communicate with potential mates. The chemistry of bioluminescence is fascinating. Most light production in deep-sea creatures involves a molecule called luciferin reacting with oxygen in the presence of an enzyme called luciferase. This reaction releases energy in the form of light, usually blue or green light, which travels furthest in seawater. But some animals don't produce light themselves. Instead, they harbor bioluminescent bacteria in special light organs, maintaining colonies of these bacteria and using their light for the animal's purposes. It's a symbiotic relationship refined over millions of years. Then there are the sensory adaptations. Eyes in the deep ocean come in extraordinary variety. Some animals, like the barreli and the giant squid, have enormous eyes to capture as much light as possible. Others have tiny eyes or no eyes at all, having lost them entirely because vision is useless in total darkness. Instead, they rely on electroreception like sharks, or on chemoreception, essentially taste and smell, to detect prey and predators. Some have incredibly sensitive lateral lines that can detect the tiniest vibrations in the water, allowing them to sense movement from meters away. The deep ocean has also shaped how animals move. With food scarce and energy precious, many deep-sea creatures are ambush predators or sit-and-wait feeders. They don't chase prey actively because the energy cost is too high. Instead, they hover, they drift, they remain motionless until food comes to them. This is why so many deep-sea fish look strange to us. They don't have the streamlined, muscular bodies of fast swimmers. They have large mouths, expandable stomachs, minimal muscle mass, and gelatinous or bony structures that allow them to maintain their position with minimal effort. And finally, there's reproduction. In an environment where encountering another member of your species might be extraordinarily rare, reproduction becomes a challenge. Some deep-sea fish have evolved bioluminescent patterns that are species-specific, allowing potential mates to recognize each other in the darkness. Some release massive numbers of eggs and sperm into the water, hoping that chance will bring them together. And some, like certain species of anglerfish, have evolved perhaps the strangest reproductive strategy of all. In these species, the tiny male anglerfish, sometimes a tenth the size of the female, finds a female and bites into her flesh. His mouth fuses to her body, and over time, his circulatory system merges with hers. He becomes essentially a parasite, or perhaps more accurately, a permanently attached sperm bank. The female provides nutrients through her bloodstream, and in return, she has immediate access to sperm whenever she's ready to reproduce. Some females have been found with multiple males attached to their bodies, creating bizarre composite organisms that challenge our understanding of what constitutes an individual animal. All of these adaptations, all of this strangeness has evolved in response to the extreme conditions of the deep ocean. And because we've only recently developed the technology to observe these animals alive, we're just beginning to understand how these adaptations actually work in practice. It's one thing to dissect a preserved specimen and describe its anatomy. It's quite another to watch that anatomy in action, to see a barrel eye rotating its eyes inside its transparent head, to watch a frilled shark undulate through the darkness, to witness a giant squid's eye-tracking movement in near-total blackness. The challenges of deep-sea observation go beyond just reaching these depths. Remotely operated vehicles are expensive to build and operate. Each dive costs thousands of dollars, requires specialized ships and crews, and can only explore a tiny area of seafloor in a given dive. The ocean is vast, 360 million square kilometers of surface area, and much of it covers depths exceeding 4,000 meters. We've mapped the surface of Mars more completely than we've mapped our own ocean floor. Moreover, the animals themselves are often damaged by the very act of observation. ROV lights can blind creatures adapted to darkness. The vibrations and sounds of approaching submersibles can scare away animals before we ever see them. And if we try to collect specimens for study, the pressure change either kills them immediately or damages their tissue so severely that many details are lost. Some deep-sea fish have such delicate bodies that they essentially explode during ascent, their swim bladders expanding until they rupture, their eyes bulging out of their heads, their internal organs failing. This is why video footage of living deep-sea creatures is so precious. It's non-invasive or minimally invasive. It allows us to observe behavior without destroying the animal. And increasingly, it's allowing us to discover new species, new behaviors, new aspects of deep-sea ecology that were completely unknown. But it also requires patience. The Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute has conducted over 5,600 ROV dives and encountered barrel-eye fish only 9 times. The first footage of a living giant squid required years of planning, hundreds of dives, and enormous persistence. The first footage of a colossal squid took over a century. And yet, despite all these challenges, despite the cost and difficulty, we continue exploring. Because the deep ocean represents the last great frontier on our own planet. Because understanding these ecosystems helps us understand how life itself works, how evolution shapes organisms, how complex communities function in extreme conditions. And because, quite simply, we're curious, We want to know what's out there. We want to see the things that have never been seen. Each new piece of footage, each new observation, each new species discovered adds to our understanding. The colossal squid footage from 2025 showed us that these animals are graceful, not monstrous. The barrel eye observations from 2004 revealed an adaptation, a transparent rotating eye system that no one had predicted or imagined. The frilled shark footage confirmed hunting behaviors that we'd only been able to guess at from anatomy. And the ongoing discoveries of potentially hundreds of new species remind us that we've barely scratched the surface of deep-sea biodiversity. What does it mean that we've never seen most deep-sea creatures alive? It means that our understanding of ocean ecosystems is incomplete. It means that the stories we tell about these animals, the ways we describe them in textbooks and documentaries, are based largely on dead specimens and educated guesses. It means that there are behaviors, strategies, interactions happening in the deep ocean right now that we can't even imagine because we've never witnessed them. But it also means that discovery is still possible, that wonder is still available to us, that the ocean still holds mysteries we can unravel if we're patient enough, if we invest the resources, if we develop the technology. And increasingly we are. Each year brings new ROVs with better cameras, deeper diving capabilities, longer endurance. Each year brings more ocean research, more international cooperation, more commitment to understanding the deep sea before we damage it irrevocably through pollution, climate change, or deep-sea mining. Because here's the truth. We're learning about these creatures at the same moment we're threatening their habitats. Deep-sea trawling drags nets across the ocean floor, destroying communities of corals and sponges that may be thousands of years old. Plastic pollution sinks to the deepest trenches, where researchers have found microplastics in the stomachs of animals living 7 miles below the surface. Climate change is altering ocean temperatures and chemistry, affecting the deep circulation patterns that bring nutrients to these environments. And companies are beginning to explore deep-sea mining, the extraction of minerals from the ocean floor which could devastate ecosystems we've barely begun to study. The deep-sea creatures we've discussed tonight, the ones humans have rarely or never seen alive, are not mythical. They're real. They're fragile in their own way, and they're part of complex ecosystems that we're only beginning to understand. Every time we lose a piece of that ecosystem before we've studied it, before we've even seen it alive, we lose something irreplaceable. We lose knowledge. We lose potential discoveries. We lose species that might have taught us something profound about life, about survival, about adaptation. But we also still have time. The ocean is vast, and while we've impacted much of it, the deepest parts remain relatively pristine. If we choose to protect them, if we choose to study them carefully before we exploit them, we could preserve these final frontiers. We could ensure that future generations have the opportunity to discover new species, to observe creatures in their natural habitats, to experience the wonder of seeing something that has never been seen before. As we come to the end of this journey into the abyss, I hope you feel something beyond just interest or curiosity. I hope you feel a sense of connection to these strange animals living in the darkest parts of our planet. They're alien in appearance, yes, adapted to conditions we can barely survive even with technology. But they're also deeply familiar. They eat, they reproduce, they avoid predators. They've evolved over millions of years in the same oceans that cover our world. They're part of the same tree of life that includes us, distant cousins shaped by different pressures into different forms, but cousins nonetheless. The colossal squid with its basketball-sized eyes scanning the Antarctic depths for the faint shadow of prey. The giant squid with its whip-like tentacles drifting through the darkness in cold waters around the world. The blobfish hovering above the seafloor, mouth open, waiting patiently for food to drift close. The frilled shark with its eel-like body and trident teeth, unchanged for 80 million years because its design is already perfect for its world. The barrel-eye with its transparent head and rotating eyes, stealing food from the tentacles of siphonophores in the dim twilight zone. All of them alive, all of them adapted, all of them part of ecosystems we're just beginning to understand. If you found peace in learning about these creatures tonight, if this exploration has helped quiet your mind or carried you gently towards sleep, I'd be grateful if you'd consider liking this video or subscribing to Nighttime Science. Your support allows us to continue creating these gentle journeys through the wonders of our world. But there's no pressure, no urgency. We'll be here whenever you need us, ready to explore another quiet corner of science and nature. For now, let yourself rest. Let your breathing slow. And if you drift towards sleep, let the image of the deep ocean carry you there. The darkness that isn't frightening but peaceful. The pressure that holds everything gently in place. The cold that slows everything to a patient rhythm. The creatures drifting through the water, unbothered by time, unbothered by haste, simply existing in the way they've existed for millions of years. The deep ocean keeps its secrets well, but slowly, carefully, we're learning to read them. And each secret revealed is a gift, a moment of connection between our world and theirs, between the light and the darkness, between what we know and what we're still discovering. The creatures we've never seen alive are still out there, still swimming, still hunting, still reproducing, still thriving in ways we can only begin to imagine. And perhaps someday, with better technology, with more resources, with more time and patience, we'll see them all. We'll understand them all. We'll know them not just as specimens in jars or images in books, but as living beings in their element, doing what they've always done in the deepest, darkest, coldest places on Earth. Until then, we have these fragments, these precious pieces of footage, these rare glimpses into a world beyond our own. And they're enough to remind us that our planet still holds mystery, still holds wonder, still holds life in forms we never expected, in places we never thought to look. The abyss is not empty. It's full of life, full of adaptation, full of stories we're only beginning to hear. Rest well, and know that far below the surface, in waters you'll never visit, the deep sea creatures continue their ancient rhythms. Unseen, unknown, alive in the darkness, waiting for the day when we finally understand them fully, when we finally see them as they truly are. That day is coming, slowly, patiently, like everything in the deep ocean, and it will be worth the wait. Good night.